Not Michelle Dewey. Let's change that.
We know who set up your screen this morning.
He is the keeper of the official account, but I'm your host this morning.
Got it.
See you better.
Hey, Sarah, the map behind you is perfect. Trails. So Dusty, who else are we maybe expecting?
Dusty, we can't hear you.
It was me last time, so I don't feel bad. Oh, but somebody's having a good time, I think. So.
What's that all about? I can't have that. Did Dusty disappear? I gotta let him back in again.
Yeah, I think sometimes if you log out, log back in, it sometimes helps. That's maybe what he's trying here.
Testing. I see Dusty's lips moving, but I do not hear sound.
And Dusty, sometimes if you go down to the microphone symbol, there's a little arrow to the right of it, and click on that. You can change your audio settings or your microphone settings. I don't know. Select the microphone. Maybe you can select a different microphone. Or not. Tom, long time no see.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody. Congratulations. I'm sorry I couldn't make it last time.
Yeah, so Tom Hawkins, Sarah and I were on a Kiwanis call at 7 this morning, or 7:30 this morning, whatever it was. I get lost.
Early
Always a
rising.
good. It's always a good time at Kiwanis.
That's right. We have a couple of Adrian Kiwanians in this group, Tom.
Oh, okay. Who?
Jim Kane and Dusty Steele.
Okay, great, great. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Tom. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I don't know, Dusty, last time I just defaulted to my phone. I gave up. So.
Hate technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's I always worry with the remote meetings are great for like for council and things like that, but then I have panic of like if we have a failure in the middle of a meeting, what do you do? So
Yeah.
Have you been Zoom bombed yet, Dan?
we have not. So we purposely went with a go-to meeting because it was a little slightly less popular, supposedly a little more secure. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but so we've not had a problem yet. But yeah,
We've had two now.
okay.
The kind of the bookends of the pandemic.
Yeah, and so I know Zoom now, you either have to have a PIN code or you have to admit them. So that's their new security feature.
Hey, Sarah, great job on the presentation this morning.
It's nice.
Thanks. It's always fun to chat with Kiwanis, even though it's a little bit of different format. That was kind of strange to see all the faces in the grid, but you got to make it work, right?
Yeah. Hey, I want to meet with you. I'm gonna send you my
Anybody hear me now?
phone number and stuff, so we can get together. I'll send you a chat number here in just a second.
Sounds good.
How about now?
Hey,
Excellent. Sorry, I had to go to Ashley's computer. Obviously, mine's a dinosaur now. We're gonna have to get rid of it. Greg, do you want me to share, let me share the screen so I can put the agenda up? Make me a co-host?
Gotcha.
Excellent, thank you. I need your email.
I think, Greg, I think what you can do is you can just go to
Share
the
email.
and if you click on the security symbol at the bottom of the screen, options, and you can allow others to share screen.
Why didn't the other email come through?
We should be good.
Check your computer.
You should be able to share the screen now, Dusty.
All right, well, at the moment, we're getting the agenda over here so that I can show it to you, but I'll go ahead and get started. And Robin, would you have roll call, please?
Here, Steele,
Yes, here.
member Elliott,
Here.
member Kane,
Here.
member Swallow,
Oh, muted.
Here.
member Witt,
Present.
all members present.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And again, we were just going to have a maintenance committee, but because of the size of our organization, our authority, and the people that needed to be at this meeting, we're just having it as a regular public meeting. So there is no public here, so I don't think there's any public comment at this time. So we'll move right into the first item of new business, which is the LAP Landscape Architect Planners, Bob Ford. He has presented, and each of you saw the agreement that was really just additional planning services that we had on that one contract with him as we walked through those steps. And he has it in time and maintenance, is that what they called? And we'll utilize his services until which time, if we hit a $5,000 cap, we would reevaluate at that time. And so is there any discussion on this item?
And Dusty, to remind me, in terms of, obviously we had a little bit of seed money I know you talked about that was remaining, but we're going to need to dip into our pooled funds at some point to reach the 5,000, or where do we stand on that?
All right, so up till now, the money we had put together, each of us $2,500. So Kiwanis and each member put the $2,500. We had $7,500 left over at this time of that particular pool of money. That's outside of the 12.5 and the 50. And that's still held at Kiwanis. We haven't moved it over to the city as of yet. So that would be the money, because it is still in the consulting and attorneys, and he's a consultant. We were still in that phase. It was part of creating the authority. But I think this is a great step forward too in putting the authority together.
So that's the funding we already have in place is what you would propose to use for this?
That's right.
Just confirming. So yeah, I would definitely support that. In fact, I think I was one of the ones that encouraged, we need some professional help as we get started here. And I think that would be very valuable to have Bob involved in the early stages here.
Thank
All
you.
right. Go ahead. Bob, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, it's time and material, so,
Materials.
yeah, we would just work with you in whatever capacity you want us, and just bill you on an hourly basis, pretty much. And, we would let you know when we get close to that cap. If you're not monitoring it, we will be. When we're usually about 80%, we'd let you know that we're at that threshold and then evaluate, where we're at, what needs to be done, and make some decisions at that point.
One example of that where we utilized Bob a little bit, prior to even having this agreement in place is as we start the fundraising, which is later on the agenda, that, we needed some graphics and things to show people, and Bob had already prepared those as part of his earlier work. So it's been helpful. That's just one example of how we've already started to use them for this initial effort.
Is there any other discussions or comments or questions?
Are we supposed to just bill the city as we've been doing in the past?
You mean,
That was a funny.
oh, I got you.
Okay.
It's logical.
Yeah.
Yeah, that went on for a while, Greg, where
Yeah.
the city was paying for everything.
We loved working with Bob. We never got billed.
So Bob knows where to send the invoices now.
Superb. All right, well, if there is any further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to engage landscape architects planners Bob Ford for the additional planning services.
So moved. Yeah.
Support.
So who was it, the motion, who was support?
And Swallow, motion.
Kane, support.
Kane, support. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right, Bob, thank you for being here. And we really need your assistance and appreciate all the work you've done so far. You've brought us a long way, and we're glad to have you as a partner as we walk forward.
Thank you, and I look forward to it as well.
In our first meeting, we did a lot of, we assigned officers, we did a number of maintenance items to get things up and running, but we started to dig in a little bit about the maintenance costs and the sharing and how that looks. And who, that's why we have Matt with us today too, because he has been responsible for the maintenance of the trail up until this year. And as we look forward with our sharing agreement, how can we build synergies within us? How can we look at what the future is as far as the maintenance plan for this year? And then really define things between capital expenditures and ongoing maintenance and beautification. So I'll open it up for discussion there.
Yeah, I think this is Dan. Just this was something we agreed as we got the authority up and running, that to take some of the burden off of Adrian, who is generously maintain a trail pretty much up to this point. But as it ages, there's going to be some additional expenses, additional maintenance, as well as ultimately some capital improvements that need to be done. So I know that was part of a significant chunk of our first year budget that we discussed would go into maintenance, as well as just general startup costs, and as well as helping out with the Council Connection. So I know we had an old version of the maintenance costs that I think Matt prepared. I'm not sure who prepared that. I don't know if that's been, I think Matt, you talked about updating that possibly. I don't know where we stand on that, I guess would be a question of mine.
Yeah, I haven't updated it for a couple of years now. Lately, we've kind of just been going by the seat of our pants. But I can certainly update that. And I guess plan for this spring, I've got money in the budget already on the city side to do crack sealing and seal coat for a majority of the trail. I know there's the bridge at Gady also needs some work, so we have some money budgeted for that. I've got things budgeted already. I don't know how we move forward now that there's an authority in place. Do we continue on with what we had planned, and then after that we start start working together on things, or do you guys want to meet on site one day and we can go over what we have planned so far?
As my preference, again, certainly everybody else chime in, but would be that since you have the most experience over the last few years, is that you build out a maintenance plan and as well as and a budget associated with that, and then obviously note what you already have covered by the city of Adrian, and then the items that fall outside of what you have covered is that this authority could consider paying for those.
Okay.
And then
Well, just looking at that, Dan, this seal coating of the majority of the trails, what you said, Matt, that would be a maintenance issue for 2021. Would we all agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So from top to bottom, seal coating from all the way to Ives Road and back in through Adrian, Matt, is that how extensive it is?
It can be. I know we did it a little bit last year, so if I can get out there and get a chance to look at it all over again and see where it stands, I can certainly come back to you guys with a total plan of what we need to do this spring and then again next year.
So one of the things that we talked about when we were developing this over the last year or so is that Jimmy went out on the trail and started walking, and so did Dale, and they found some potholes and different things up in Raisin Township, some of them in Adrian Township. There were different parts of the trail that needed some work done. Do you have sort of a trail map and phases of where there's hot spots or issues that we should address? And with that, it is important that we show strength in the townships as far as making sure that trail looks as great as it can because of this authority. And that's my opinion, but I think it's important that we show the citizens and the constituents in those areas that we're serious about taking care of the entire trail up there as well.
So I don't necessarily have a map for hot spots. Honestly, like yesterday, we just received a call about a sinkhole along the trail, and today we're fixing it. So I mean, it's not like it's something that that we have planned. It's just gonna kind of be working on it as we go, like we have been in the past. I don't know how we want to deal with those situations. We also blow off the trail on a couple weekly basis. So is it something that we're gonna need approval for, or is it? I just don't see how this is gonna work, I guess.
I think this is Dan. I guess I feel like during this transition, we're going to need your, leadership, if you will, for lack of better, in the city of Adrian's leadership to kind of continue somewhat leading that maintenance plan, but work over the next year to transition that a little bit more, at least from the financing side. Who pays for it? Start to transition some of those costs to the authority. So. Is guess how I view that, and then maybe a year from now we have another discussion about okay, do we start to split up this work a little bit more, and so you have to lead all of it.
But I guess some of the struggle is that it's a lot of things that we do in-house. So not that we really have a billing system to. I mean, we certainly can do that. It kind of adds more work along the way then.
Right.
And now we're setting up a billing process, now we're invoicing.
Sorry.
Bob, were you going to address something here?
I would just like to mention two things. Number one, when you take on a maintenance project, and this is really hard to do, but it's something that you should get in the habit of doing, and maybe you already have, I shouldn't, is to take a picture or pictures of the area that you're going to maintain, and therefore it'll be date stamped. So you'll get that before picture, and then take an after picture from the same location if you can. So it shows the contrast from before and after. What that does is it provides a photo record for you so you can recall and remember, because a lot of things get lost in the shuffle. And it also acts as a good promotional benefit to your constituency at the end of the year. So this board and the city and everybody can take pride in having done some of those projects. So as a photographer, if you can kind of capture the view in the worst possible shot in the beginning and take it from the best possible shot at the end to show or demonstrate the contrast, a long way. And then when it comes to keeping track, I think you've done an excellent job. I've seen your report from last year, and you maintained a good cost analysis throughout the whole record keeping. It's really just a matter of trying to prioritize and doing a quarterly report or semi-annual, but something that would simply state, what you've done, what are the projects that were done, the costs, which you're kind of already doing, and then the forecast. And the forecast could be an annual thing or it could be a semi-annual thing where things change. So, you've got your pulse on it. You got your finger on the pulse right now. And there's nobody else that knows better than you, Matt, as to what's going on here. And to just set up a real simple system for documentation, which I think you've already got. And then you're right on the invoicing. You just got to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, so this is kind of this, Dan, maybe a question for Greg and Matt together. I mean, could you just, at the end of the quarter, kind of put together a rough, list of what you've done, and then we can agree that, whether the authority covers half of the cost or whatever it may be, that you just send an invoice to the authority for the work that occurred over the last quarter. And it doesn't have to be exact. To Bob's point, I think it can be, an approximation, or at least getting as close as we can without creating a lot of work for you.
I think Matt's point was we have to have a basis for valuing the labor that is going into that as well.
Would it make sense for us at the very beginning, which is now, to invest in a drone of some sort that we could maybe semi-annually or quarterly or whatever, take a drone shot of the entire trail and keep records of it and show the areas that we're going to spend some money on maintenance during that quarter or that year.
See,
Is that Matt's wheelhouse?
That was what?
Matt has a buddy who has a drone, so
Does he?
wheelhouse to do that.
I don't know if you're going to see some of the stuff you need to see with a drone, in terms of, you almost have to walk it, would be my thought. I'm assuming Lenawee County has a GIS map of the, all the areas that are affected, that maybe we could talk to Lenawee County GIS person over there and have them print us a map. And then we could start marking it up. Whether it's Matt and Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm going to volunteer you. Maybe you could help in documenting, walking the trail and documenting what we need to do.
And if you need help, if we have the GIS file on that, we could help construct any type of mapping that you would need, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I generally use Google Maps. It's everyone has it, and I can share it with anyone. So whatever you guys would like to use, I can use.
My second maintenance question is, this is in my brain, but again, I'm running a unit of government that's non-union. I was thinking that it would be nice work projects, especially now that we're getting the connection to the Tecumseh. We've got the Tecumseh Kiwanis Club involved. We've got the Adrian Kiwanis Club at this end, that a lot of the brush along the side that needs to be just cut back and disposed of on an annual basis. I was hoping that we could do those as work projects. But again, I know years ago we worked on a few things and got in trouble with the city of Adrian over the fact that the city workers were not happy that we were doing it for nothing. So just, I don't know how we work through that or if we can work through that. But that's, that was kind of one of my visions.
I would think we can work through that. I mean, particularly as it relates to areas that are outside the city limits. I don't view that as union work.
Okay.
So I guess just to kind of summarize, I mean, whether it be Google Maps, you know, Matt and Sarah, and I know anybody else wants to participate in that, maybe we could kind of get a preliminary walk of the trail, identify things that need to happen. Matt already knows about many of them. We could mark that up and have it accompanied with kind of a list of items and, you know, some very rough cost estimates. Then we can kind of divvy that up of, you know, what is the city of Adrian going to accomplish? What are we going to reimburse them for? At this point, I think most, you know, a chunk of the labor other than the brush clearing and stuff is probably still going to have to be done either by the city of Adrian and or unless we want to bring a contractor in for some larger projects, but at least maybe we have a mechanism and then work on a mechanism for reimbursing city of Adrian for some of the costs.
So Bob, there's a number of other things that we talked about, like, you know, proper type of foliage, some dangerous areas, different things like that. If you'd elaborate a little bit on that as we walk through this as far as priorities go.
Sure. So at this time, we're focusing on, as I understand it, focusing on maintenance items, not necessarily focusing too heavily on capital improvements. So in the maintenance realm, there were some areas that were identified a year ago where it's where there are liability issues, particularly in the city, along the river, where there are places where there's sharp embankments. And, you know, do we have the adequate protections to keep people from going down the bank? You probably haven't had any of those incidents, but if you have, it'd be nice to know. And then we could start to focus on that. There's also some visibility issues. I remember where we either couldn't find the trail because it wasn't marked properly or it wasn't obvious. And I think we were good candidates for that because even though I'd been on the trail once or twice before, it's been quite a while. I remember not necessarily getting lost, but a little confused at certain points. So the wayfinding, I think, needs to be just touched up a little bit in certain areas. And then vegetation that Jim was talking about earlier, maybe there's a way to, you know, either cut back and or remove and or replace with different types of vegetation that might be less maintenance prone. So those are just some beginning ideas that we can talk about. You know, it'd be great to get down there with Matt and others and just kind of walk it and talk it so that we really have a understanding, similar understanding of what those issues are.
Excellent.
Do we want to schedule a time for a walk?
What was that, Greg?
Oh, yeah.
It's 40 degrees tomorrow and Thursday.
We obviously might need to break it up into, you know, segments or something like that. I'm not sure if we're, you know, if you're busy looking at stuff, that would take a long time to go the entire distance. So.
I think liability is number one, at least generally that's what you're always looking for. You just don't need a lawsuit because of gross negligence. So that's usually the number one issue. I'm not saying you have gross negligence, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that the more you can do to bolster your case, and you have to think, unfortunately, in the dire terms. Everywhere I go, I think about how can somebody get injured? And from there is where I start to do an analysis and or make recommendations. So that's the critical eye to protect the city and townships from the trail liability.
Just to add to Bob's previous comments a little bit too, I mean, I think we have a maintenance list, and then we start working on a longer term capital improvement list too. So where we're going to need some more significant funds potentially to fix something that's, whether it's replacing a segment of trail or whatever, those larger dollar figure items that, we're gonna have to be planned ahead significantly.
That's a great point.
So we kind of have a maintenance list, then we have the capital improvement list, which is hopefully capital improvements list is much shorter, but attached probably to larger dollar figures.
The other issue that I think falls into what Dan is saying for projecting out is your promotions and your vision and your crowdfunding and or potential grants. So within that realm, it never hurts to have a good communication network with your constituents so that you can broadcast the improvements that you make. And regular, doesn't have to be over the top, but regular notifications of some kind, just telling people, we repaired a bridge and we did this, we did that, just so people remember or know that you're, first of all, in existence, and secondly, that you're making improvements over time. You probably had a little bit of a press release on the authority being established. So we need to look for low-hanging fruit, and Matt would be the first person that could help us there in identifying those projects that maybe have already been improved or maintained. So it doesn't hurt to look back into last year and look at those things. Maybe there's something significant that we could highlight, that we corrected or improved upon, and get a little bang for the buck early in the process. I'm not saying we make it up or claim something that the city has done. I'm just saying that we need to look for those low-hanging fruit items that we can, like the trailhead, for example, and do a little story on those things as they occur. Maybe you've already done that, but that promotion and communication is equally as important to build your constituency and get your support. You'll need letters of support. You'll need all sorts of things for any type of a grant or foundation request. And you need a little group of folks that are trail supporters that can come to your side whenever you need them to be able to broadcast those improvements and or support for the trail. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
Agreed. And Jim Kane's point of having a volunteer day could be a valuable tool for that as well, or could be a valuable opportunity for that.
Good point.
Yeah, that brings me to the point of branding, the KRTA, websites, some of that other work. Bob, you had mentioned that in your proposal, and that you do some of that work as well. Could you elaborate on that? Yes.
We just completed a website. It was for a bicycle tour. And we broadcast that. We've created different flyers and brochures and things of that nature. I'll hold one up. It's kind of hard to see, but this is a little 3x4 inch document. It's broadcasting a trail ride that we developed, and it has sponsors in here. It has a map of things, and it's got, in this case, we had speakers, people that actually spoke on the trail ride. But it's this type of thing that you and or volunteers could do to kind of talk about the different areas and things within your city. So a lot of this, and I don't want to get too far off track here but it's a website and it's different types of publications or flyers that you can produce to center around an event or communicate with people. In this case, it was a ride, and it was a tourist in your own town. It happened to be Detroit. And you look at the various locations and destinations, and you can organize, get people to ride to these areas. We're working on a virtual tour right now. So it's called Pocket Sites, where you can keep it on your phone. You can download it. And if you go to a community, you can bring it up and take the same ride. And you can literally have video recordings of people that can talk about a particular area. And it may not be a site specific, but most of the ones we have done are site specific and talk about the improvements. In your case, I think the river, the community assets would be really what you can focus on. And maybe the Chamber of Commerce or others might join in and try to get that community route described. Now, Detroit, we had like 4 or 5 different routes, but it's just another way to get people involved. And then we can, now you have something to talk about. If you can get a group who wants to spend some time there, they can update the websites. They can be very proactive in getting these things off the ground. And you might have 1 or 2 events during the year. You could advertise clean the river, you can advertise clean the trail, you can advertise all those types of things. But the Trail Authority could be the leader in that regard and develop that community interaction. Branding the trail, you've already got a pretty good brand, but there's ways to enhance it and ways to make people understand it and understand the community spirit that goes along with this. Once you have those trail supporters and trail riders, you already know, because you've got a very nice trail. People love it. And it's just taking that love and trying to broadcast it and publicize it. Little stories here and there go a long way. Get the newspaper on your side. Just to keep this in motion. Now, not all of you have all that time to devote to this. I understand that. But you need the advocacy group to kind of be either a subcommittee or collaboration or something of that nature that we can rally around and get some people involved that would carry that burden for you. You just have to monitor it or step in at certain times when appropriate.
So Bob, I have a question. This is Dan, and I'm not sure how much of this you would be able to do or willing to do as part of this agreement, but we need some very basic branding work in the beginning, a logo, where are we going to put some signs, and we talked about the trailheads, we need to have a spot where we're going to recognize some of our donors, where do those signs go? At least those initial, signage improvements, and then obviously there'd be maybe a longer term plan to do more, but I think we need some basic stuff to help us, basically, promote the trail. And I know, we're going to talk about this a little bit too. Dusty and I have been working on the fundraising. We need some of that basic stuff to show donors, how they, how they're going to contribute and how they might be recognized.
That's exactly right. So when it comes to donors, there's, a variety of ways to go about that. And if somebody else has already been involved in that in the past, it would be good to understand all of that has preceded us to this point, so that when we take that on, as Dan is suggesting, we don't forget the people that have already been involved and already donated. And as Dan suggests, a donors plaza, any type of, sign. Now we want to be careful with our signage because we don't want to start having sign pollution, but we do want to have the appropriate signage in the appropriate places that can recognize folks. A lot of times, just like river corridors and drain commissioners, they promote certain sections of their drain that are maintained by a group. And you may have, and it may fall out based by township, but it may fall out by groups too, who could maintain things and help. So there's all of that to consider. We did that along the Lansing River Trail here, which is now expanded to almost 20 miles. And we took certain sections and tried to give it to people that would take care of it. Some of those worked, the majority did not. People lost interest. They'd do it for a year and then they'd fade. So we just need to kind of take inventory of all that and figure out, again, what our priorities are.
So I guess initially, just some like basic things. Do you have graphic artists that would help us, put together kind of a, some logos, some creative signage, some of that type of stuff, or should we be looking elsewhere for that type of assistance?
No, I have one fella specifically who's a talent, and he can do some superb logo design. We just did this for the Paint Creek and worked with those units of government. They have an authority in that area. And we put together a series of 5 or 6 different types of logos. And then they went through a selection process. And they already had a logo, by the way. They kind of returned to the basic logo, but we took that basic logo and enhanced it sort of updated it and cleaned it up. But we had some, I think, really good choices, and they struggled and they got a little nervous changing the brand that they had already established. So they retreated on it a little bit, but we did have some beautiful logos. Yeah, we can help with doing that for sure. What we would like to start that process is kind of some parameters or ideas that you, the authority, comes up with from your membership to kind of think about it in your own head, and then put down in writing and or sketching, however you want to do it, some of the items or iconic items that you think would be important to have in the logo. Granted, usually none of those ideas usually end up being the logo, but it gets us started, and gives everybody an opportunity to throw their ideas out there. And then we take that and talk to others and put together what we think you're trying to tell us and what we see ourselves in terms of what the logo should be.
Yeah, thank you, Dusty, for sharing the some of the fact sheet information we've started to put together for our fundraising effort. Shows you a little bit of what we're working on.
Yep, and what you're seeing here, and I guess we can parlay right to that, but I do want to summarize. I know I went off on a couple extra subjects, and it's sort of teeing it up for our January meeting. So I want to come back and sort of seal it up with Matt as to what we'd like to do as far as action steps in the next 30, 60 days to help Matt out too, because I know that, again, he's got a lot on his plate, so sometimes the trail becomes sort of reactive and you deal with it as you go. But trying to shift to this planning stage and see if we can have some in-kind transfers of responsibilities and that type of thing. We're going to get a visual of a map. You're talking Google. We're going to, some of us maybe go out there and walk the trail, start marking it up, starting to develop a plan for this year. Is that what we all left us with Matt?
Yeah, that's in my mind. We have a map that's marked up with hot spots, as I think the term was used, of where there's maintenance needs. And then Matt helped us, maybe Sarah can contribute to helping us out a little bit, put a list together that associates with that map with some rough cost estimates.
So I'd actually sent out a link to a map that I was using in the past. If we want to switch, we most certainly can. But I'm open to taking a walk with anyone that wants to go. I do have a vehicle that does fit on the trail. So if you don't want to walk, we can also drive. If anyone wants to go, I'm available this week during the nice days, or we can put it off. I'd kind of like to get a report going so I can give you guys something to look at the next meeting.
All right, so anybody of you would like to circle back with Matt and get on the, is it a mule that you have that runs up and down there, or some sort of vehicle of that nature? Dale, don't you have a new one too?
No, we don't.
Oh, you don't?
Well, we do have a gator that we could use.
Okay.
I want to see Dusty walk.
There's always bicycles too. Don't forget bicycles.
Well, 40-degree temperature bicycles. So good. Let's Matt, thank you for your work on this. I think it's all in good spirit. None of it is, to say that you haven't been doing a great job on the trail. I just think we all want to sort of get our hands around it and see where we all can pitch in. and make this a great thing where we can improve the quality all the way through the trail and do it at reasonable price and deliver it to our constituents. So thank you for all your work, Matt. Appreciate it a lot.
No problem. Looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you. With that, no further discussion on that. We'll move over to our fundraising efforts at Tecumseh. So there's been some encouraging signs out of Kiwanis, of Adrian. Our CIC and our board have unanimously approved a $50,000 commitment, and the board or the club votes on it tomorrow. So I'm pretty confident, but I don't always want to just say that's done. I've also talked to a number of other stakeholders, and it's really getting a positive response. I know Dan's been hitting people out there, and Marcy's after other ones. So you will see us coming. Don't run from us. We are out to raise some funds. But I will say this: the few that I have sat down and talked with, they immediately go into an advocacy behavior and start calling their friends. So it doesn't appear that it's going to be, while it's a challenge, I think if we can just get out there and talk to people, and I encourage all of you to talk to them. We'll give you the materials. Bob, I'm going to hand this over to you too, see if you can improve this document for us. But what we're seeing now is this, and most of you were in the meeting probably when Kim Murphy said that we needed to get this done by mid-January, at least a considerable amount of money raised by mid-January so that we can send it out for bids. I'm not saying pressure's on, but through the holidays and everything, you got to try to tie people down, see if you can talk to them and tell them about this exciting opportunity. This document shows an $800,000 total project estimate when we now know that it's more like $950,000. But I think we're going to keep our target there and just say it's the $800,000 and probably try to go over. I know, Dan, you had some rationale with that as well. But when you look at the DNR grant, at 300,000, because we'll pass that at 750 for it to be 40% of the project. And then the two patronicities, we talked about letting those go in about March. Where are you thinking, Dan? Two patronicity, $50,000?
So, yeah, and that's something that Greg, I know if you want me to coordinate directly with you, I'd like to involve Sarah a little bit on that as well. We're going to do a joint patronicity campaign. So the city of Adrian would launch one and the city of Tecumseh would launch one roughly at the same time. And so I've done some preliminary work on that particular, because that's going to be a big chunk of what we want to raise. That's the crowdfunding campaign. So I have engaged our local Artomic, which is a local web developer that also does videos. So when it was still pretty, the leaves on the trees, they went out and took some video along Green Highway and Ives, Ives and Racing Center Highway. So they have some video and they're working on that because I know that's a key thing that to generate interest that you want is a nice video of your project. So what I'd like to do is probably in the next couple of weeks, meet with you and Sarah. I'll probably pull you in. Greg, I don't know if there's anybody else from the city of Adrian you want to pull in, and we can put a final timeline together and then start applying, because we have to apply to the state for the matching funds. I think it's a relatively quick turnaround, but we still need to get that application in. And then we have to connect with Patronicity and talk to them about how we want to program our campaign. So that is going to be a big push on our side, and that gets that's where if you generate some interest in the community and talking to your friends, neighbors, and coworkers and things, that when we launch that campaign, then they have a direct way to help support it. And we hope to, raise potentially at least $100,000 with that effort alone. So there's a $50,000 match from the state, and so if we have two matches, I guess technically we go as high as 200,000.
Yeah, and so the idea would be that MEDC would cover 100 from the match side, and DNR has 300. That's 400. So we have to raise 550, and I'm confident we will. I'm very confident that we will. But I think by January, I'd like to. Our goal is at least show 350, 400 on the board, so that Marty continues to be comfortable moving forward with the DNR grant. Bob, one of the things that we talked about is trying to get the right type of pamphlets and information out to the public, as you talked about those little the cards you had and the like, but there's various giving levels that we've identified, and we call them different names, like Patronicity wants you to do that. They want, if you're a hiker, a walker, a jogger, a biker, you have different giving levels. So I'm going to send this material to you. If you give me some advice on that, I'd appreciate it. But we talked about in our last meeting some money to help do some of that marketing. And I've gotten some commitments, Dan, that I haven't shared yet because we're not at that stage. And I think I'll have the seed money. We don't necessarily have to confuse this right now unless you guys want to open discussion about that. But I'm really honing in on the maintenance sharing at this stage and trying to keep us focused on that. But then again, there is this need for us to brand and become aware in the community. And this project is so visible that we need to tie into it and make sure that the Kiwanis Regional Trail Authority was a major part of the credit for making it happen. So Bob, any advice on that as we work through that? It'll be some of the goals as we come into the next 30 to 60 days.
I'd be happy to help on that.
Just to add what Dusty said, so we have a fundraising committee, more Tecumseh based, obviously, since it's a little bit, but also obviously Adrian folks helping us out. But to identify some larger donors in the beginning. That's, as Dusty already mentioned, the Kiwanis Club of Adrian. I've talked to our Kiwanis Club. We have at least 10, and they're willing to potentially go higher than that. We've talked to some of the local foundations, Lenawee Community Foundations in for Lenawee County Community Foundations in for at least 25. So there's some larger pieces that we have in place, to Dusty's point, to make the county comfortable that we will achieve the match. And then we'll get the smaller donations, hopefully, as we launch that crowdfunding campaign.
And I just want to remind Greg that the city's on the hook for $450,000.
Good to know.
In case you didn't see that back in the minutes from a couple years ago.
No, I did not review those.
You can still blame that one on Shane.
Actually, it was if we go back, if anybody remembers that at the time of application, you were supposed to have a considerable amount of the funds already raised. And to make sure that application went forward, the city of Adrian stuck their neck out and guaranteed the project. And I stuck my neck out and said I'd do whatever I can to help raise the funds if they do that. So I want to just make sure how big a leadership Adrian did have in this particular endeavor as well. City of Adrian. All right. So rah, let's fire it up. This is a big event. This is something huge. Get your friends and anybody. All money counts, and it's a great way to bring the trail into everybody's vision.
If you have thoughts on who and/or an entity that we should approach that you think would be very interested in supporting the trail financially, certainly contact myself or Dusty, and we'll add that to our lists. We're making those initial outreaches and calls right now.
And I can certainly send a list to everybody of our current list and see if there's anybody that you think we're missing. All right.
Good.
All right, now I can't see the agenda. Can you share that back with me, Dan?
Absolutely. Okay, you got to stop sharing before I can do that.
Oh, I got to stop sharing. That's right. How do I do? There we go. So I want to share Ashley's family's pictures.
Maybe at the top of the screen, there should be a little drop-down menu or something that says stop share, a little red square that says stop.
I'm looking. You see it? Stop share. Is it stop recording? I got it. There you go. Stop share.
There we go.
Got it. All right. So this would be the point where we go for public comment. And since I don't know if there's any public, let's make comment. We can, and is there anything else that wants to come before this body today?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. Would you guys
Sure,
be
man.
able to I sent out a doodle poll to see when you guys would be available for a walk?
That'd be great.
Sure.
Matt, do you want to walk or ride? Because I mean, I can only walk so far.
Either way, whatever you guys would like to do.
I'll
Yeah,
bring my bike.
how many you can get on your little machine, but
I-
that obviously would be the best.
I can get 4.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think that'd be great. That way we get the maximum amount of people that can participate. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I'll
So
send out.
is there a second vehicle, Dale, that we could take along with Matt's, and maybe everybody could go?
That'd be great.
I will ask our fire department to have a side-by-side, but I'm not sure they'll trust me with it.
Good move, Dan.
And Tom,
5 years
welcome.
They get rid of you real quick after 5 years when you ruin a fire engine.
All right. They still talk about Kevin Welch who ruined the snowplow, so.
Tom, this is Dusty. I was having technical difficulties at the beginning. I didn't get a chance to welcome you, but I'm glad to meet you today, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Same here.
Excellent. There's no other items for this body. We will adjourn. I will see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let you close it up.
Bye.